I think a lot of sales teams and sort of founding teams think about partnerships as like an interesting feature. Maybe it's like some marketing, I get some booth space somewhere or a webinar. Like we're seeing the opposite. Like it is driving pipes and conversions and channels and market entry and all of this like outsized impact. How do you get folks to understand that partnerships isn't some cost center, non-revenue, non-value sort of creating or transferring entity? I don't think a lot of folks know how to ask the how many times have you been to Summit question when someone comes out and is like, hey, I can help you unlock all of this. So how do you help them make sure that they're spending time, they're spending money, and they're consuming the right information?
So this whole area within the DC metro area is just crawling with these types of people, right? And I think the first question you always ask is, have you sold something new into the government? You talk to a lot of people that have sold hundreds of millions of dollars worth of programs into the government. What have you sold? Navy radars. Well, the Navy's been buying radars since 1940.
From Lockheed or Oracle or something that's been around for 25 years.
But have you sold something truly new and innovative where you have to change people's paradigm of how they think about something? To me, that's like the number one question. And if they've sold even a couple $100,000 or $1 million of new technology, that to me is something different. And that's where you can actually, you hire on energy, not experience. So if the person's energetic and they've done that, to me, I always hire on energy versus experience. Experience here is a dime a dozen, right? But do they have the energy to knock down that wall? Because it's gonna take a couple hundred times of you smashing your head against it before maybe it breaks. And you talk about selling into the government, like there's the whole idea of, we always say goTenna, selling the government's easy. It's taking a test. And everyone complains about how difficult it is, right? Our LinkedIn feeds are just full of people talking about, selling to the government's difficult, selling to the government's difficult. Government contracts like $800 or $900 billion a year. If you can't capture a couple $100K or $1 million, dude, that's a you problem, not the government's problem, right?
I was recently in London, and we were on selling artificial intelligence and like DevSecOps to the public sector, and everyone was like, it's impossible. And I was like, it's a highly regulated industry. Like, it's annoying, but like, it's pretty well documented. And like, is it cumbersome? Sure. But to your earlier point on the Acela model, right? Selling to JP Morgan sucks. Selling to Pfizer or Baxter sucks. Selling to like some healthcare company or hospital system sucks. And if you can push through it, there's a degree of stickiness you'll get. And there's also I don't know how to word this the right way, but I don't know if it's like intellectual hubris or laziness of like, you can't expect a customer to change the way they act because of you and you thinking. If you're not going to have sort of the EQ and the wherewithal to at least understand how to get the systems to at least be close to working together, I don't know if you should be in growth or sales or trying to like go disrupt an industry. You can't just shriek from the corner.
You and I chose this life.
Yeah.
We're in it.
Yeah.
But to that point, everyone, right? The government tells you what to do. So don't fight the test, pass the test. Yeah. We always say that at goTenna. There's a test you have to take to sell to the government. We know what it is. It's cumbersome, but don't complain about the test. Pass the test first. And then think of ways to make them not say no, right? Make it impossible for the contracting officer to say no. So they know what the legal review, the policy review, the budget reviews are, right? They have those gates. They know how long it takes. You know how it's going to be 30 days for one, 90 days for another. It goes to a congressional review, but you know what these gates are. So set it up beforehand and have that open conversation. Contracting officers love saying no, but if you find the right one, whether it's with these innovation teams or with AFWorks or with commercial solutions opening programs, right? They'll run through walls with you. Yep. So make it hard for them. Make them shine. You bring on technology really quick, they shine. So that's where I think the innovation is make it hard for them to say no.
Yeah. No, and I love the recognition that how much innovation can be driven in a world we just continue to talk about sort of emerging tech and the next thing, and we're still talking about that human element. So you talk about sort of cheat coding from hey, have you sold something new to sort of industrial age organizations before? Flip that, and as you're out engaging with contracting offices or different procurement teams. We had Bonnie Evangelista on the show recently, and she's driving transformative change over at Tradewinds. How do you find folks like that, or how do you tell other folks to look for folks like that?
I think that's on the office lead of regardless of what office you're working with, right? Yeah. If it's the CVP innovation team, if it's the program management office directorate within CVP, if it's DHS S&T, right? You have to, that comes from the top, truly, because then they look for that. They look for that innovative person. They look for that hungry person. Again, hire on energy. Look for the energetic contracting person. Pluck them up and put them in your office, and then let them run. Introduce them to the companies, because a lot of people are afraid to talk to the contracting officers, right? A lot of contracting officers are also afraid to reply, right? They're allowed to. You're allowed to talk to the contracting officer. It's not like this.
Decades of barracks lawyers has broken contracting officers.
Yeah, it's like we're scared to talk to them, right? Yeah. We're standing on the other side of the 8th grade dance and being like, well, I don't want to talk to the contracting officer. I'm really nervous, right? Like, no, talk to the contracting officer a lot of times, or bring them out to a demo. You're also allowed to do that. Yeah. Bring them out of the office. To me, that has been one of the biggest, I think, eye-opening things, to bring them out of the office, bring them out of the bureaucracy, and be like, here, this is what we're doing with tech. You want to see it? Pull it up on the phone.
Make it accessible.
Right? Make it accessible.
So it's not on like a Word document. They're trying to figure out, what does it mean when they say mesh network?
Right.
Yeah.
Get them excited. I'm very excitable.
Yeah, clearly.
You're way too excitable.
Hello.
Right. So get them excited as you are, and then they become your biggest advocate. That's where I've seen, and we live in the United States. We are, I would say, the most technologically innovative country in the world. But what China's doing is they're just blowing up the entire contracting process. So they're removing the bureaucracy. So they're fast followers. So we're the most technologically innovative. They're the most process innovative because they don't have a process. Yeah. So we need to get around that. So we just need to speed up our process, which is, unfortunately, that's the human element. Yep. It's we are the glitch, humans.
Yeah.
And most things that we look at. Right.
The bug and the feature.
Yes.
Yeah. How do you take sort of that concept of cheat codes, and how do you think about scaling that? Right. I mean, you and I are each sort of talking about, from a singular company standpoint, how do you, even if we go somewhere in the middle and we say like a portfolio level, right? How do we start to think about getting outsized ROI from cheat codes? And is that building coalitions, right? There's a degree of like awareness and education. There's a degree on sort of like policy and making sure they're allowed to, or that they're aware they're allowed to. But how do you start to get more going through?
So look at who's winning in this industry, right? It's the large Lockheed Martins, the Boeings, the Raytheons, and what are they? They're system integrators. They're integrating systems. They're integrating different things. So by themselves, it's interesting. But if they're integrating partnerships, so now I'm putting out my partnerships hat. So I see the world as a partnership, right? I'm a hammer and the world is nails. It's just partners. And I think building that coalition of partners and bringing more value to the customer, where yes, I have a mesh radio by itself. It's interesting, but it's more interesting if I bring in a brand new Samsung phone, or I bring in Bunker, who is our case company, and I bring in Chords, and I bring in other things to make the radio better. Now I've built a partnership, and it has more capabilities for the end customer. Yeah. Right? So you're basically becoming a small system integrator. That's where I think you scale, because now I'm a small business, you're a small business. I can put in my own small business contracts, and I'm the prime and you sub. Now you can be the prime and sub to other contracts. So now we have a flywheel where both companies are effectively competing against the same things, but you have this sub-prime relationship, which increases your odds of winning. Yeah. So that increases your P-win. So if you're thinking, now you're putting your CRO hat on, second front, how do I increase my probability of win and probability of go? Like, this increases your P-win and your P-go if you increase the number of partners that you have.
So it's interesting, right? I love the idea of thinking of partnerships and partners and alliances sort of as like an SI type capability. And I think there's absolutely some equilibrium to be achieved with like quantity and quality and all of that. But I want to unpack that even more, because I think, and like Mamie Cruz is our vice president of partnerships and alliances, and I tell people all the time, like, would not be 1/100th as successful as we are without what Mamie's able to do from a partnership standpoint. I think a lot of sales teams and sort of founding teams think about partnerships as like an interesting feature. Maybe it's like some marketing, I get some booth space somewhere, or a webinar, right? We're seeing the opposite. Like it is driving pipes and conversions and channels and market entry and all of this like outsized impact. How do you get folks to understand that partnerships isn't some cost center, non-revenue, non-value sort of creating or transferring entity?
So I'm very egocentric. So of course, partnerships is the connective tissue across a company.
It is all of it. It is life.
But
it's like football.
But to that point, partnerships should be on all of the product calls. They should be on all of the customer success and customer experience calls. They should obviously be on the sales calls because they're driving revenue, right? Partnerships should have a target. So partnerships to me, again, connective tissue across the company where you're helping to drive the product roadmap. Because if goTenna has items on the product roadmap that we want to expand to, wow, we should go partner and maybe go after some zippers together, right? And that helps get our product roadmap funded. Wow, what a great idea. Now we get paid to do the work that we were going to do anyway. So I think partnerships helps across a number of different functions for that exact reason, where you can provide that connective tissue. And also, again, give them revenue targets. Because everyone always looks at partnerships like, what do they do? They just drink and know things, right? Like they get coffee with people, they go to happy hours. Like, no, put a target on them. And whether the target is how many partners you've onboarded or like a reselling target. Like to me, that's where what gets measured, what gets done. And I think that's where you can start driving some real value with partnerships.